there's this belief that more hours equals more output, and it's not true.
You're listening to Permission to Offend, the show that helps you live a life fully self-expressed so you can easily step up to your next level of faith, worth, and wealth. Each week, I show you how to stand up, speak up, and own your power without worrying about being judged or offending others. I'm your host, Rachel Luna, and it's time to get offensive. Let's go. We're just going to start. I miss you and Renee so much. And actually, it's like the Martell Love Fest because I'm
you got her planner?
I got her plan. Yeah.
It's good, eh?
It's great. It's great.
I remember when she got the first, I saw the PDF, but then when she got the first one, and I'm like, babes, you are so talented. Like her creativity and her, I'm like, you put all of this in this planner? She's like, yep. I'm like, that's a lot of work.
It is so good. And one of my clients asked me the other day, who comes to mind when you think power couple? No lie, Dan Martell and Renee Warren, for sure. So I have her book, which is great. And I love you. So I knew I was going to love the book, but absent of knowing you, it's so good. I'm low-key mad at you for calling me out multiple times in the book.
Really? Did I do a good job?
My gosh. Great job.
You know what's funny is there was 5 people in my life that I wrote the book based off of, but I tried to take every inspiration and scenario and stuff. So if it's resonating with you, that means so much to me because that was always my desire when I was trying to tell the story and the thing. And it's people think it's this, but it's really that. And then, cause I've seen it so many times, these breakthroughs, but I want to share something with you. You may not know about the book. It's little, but it means a lot to me. If you actually take the jacket cover off, I designed it with an embossed signature. So a lot of people don't know that my logo is my signature.
I saw
the
that.
DM logo. Yes. And the publisher was like, what? We only do the spine. I'm like, nope. Put that on there. That's secret.
I actually noticed that because when I'm reading a book, I take off the cover. So I got yours because I went right in, but I try to preserve the cover and I just go old school. I put it on because we're interviewing and I want people to see the cover, which is great as well. But I noticed that right away. And I thought that's such a great detail. And
it's the inside of the apple, man. Steve Jobs made everybody sign the inside of the case in the early days of the Lisa. If you take a case off, it's got all the engineers that signed it. And I've always tried to add Easter eggs to my projects. And this is my version of an Easter egg is that for the ones that do take the jacket cover off, or I personally tell, because I honestly, I didn't even know jacket covers. I hired a designer and she came in my office and I have thousands of books in my house. And she's the one that showed me you could take the jacket covers off. These are all no jacket covers and they all have design. I didn't even know.
You didn't know that?
Never occurred to me. And I know people are listening and you're going, what? If you take the jacket cover of a hardcover book off, there's actually a beautiful color and usually leaf foil type of
there's
thing.
Something to it.
And it's pretty. Yeah. So that's what I do now in my office. Yeah. Color coordinated.
Well, I gotta tell you, yes, this book has been speaking to me and you can see it. I've already, I've got pages folded down. Oh, I'm a student.
Wow.
Dan.
So you gotta understand, I'm new to the conversation with a person who's read the book. Cause I did early drafts, but it's kind of a new experience. So I'm in pure awe and gratitude right now. And excited because I want to have the conversation that comes from the reading. right? Like,
Yeah.
this is the stuff I know, obviously. So it's like, okay, there, but let's talk about whatever you want to talk about that's come from this.
Well, I have all the questions. I almost feel like selfishly, I wish I could make this a two-parter, because when I first started reading the book, I thought, because the book is called Buy Back Your Time, Get Unstuck, Reclaim Your Freedom, and Build Your Empire, I thought, oh, cool, time management, which I know Dan is going to be great. And I should also say for our listeners, Dan, you and I know each other for a long time. I feel like 7 years now.
Longer, I think. It was, I remember, Rachel, the moment I was introduced to Rachel Luna.
Tell me about it.
I'm at 10X Empire.
Oh my gosh.
I'm at 10X Empire. I'm sitting in the audience, and this like firecracker stands up, and you're in the front in the VIP section or something. Yes. I wasn't smart enough back then to get the VIP.
Always go VIP.
Yes, duh. And Brendan Burchard calls on you, and you stand up, and you're just like, I'm done. I'm sick of it. Because I think at the time you were like promoting other people's stuff, and you're like, I'm creating my own stuff, and I'm going to put myself first, and I'm going to take over the world. And you were just like, and the whole room felt your energy, and like what you shared. And this is this would have been, you're right. 7-8 years ago. Yeah.
No, that was 2014.
Okay. 2014. It was right after
2015.
Yeah. So it was 2014. So we've known each other for 8 years. And I remember going, I need to find that person, because I was just getting into this on I didn't even have a course or anything. I had zero when at that event. I went because of my buddy Martin. And I remember finding you, and I was like, hey, do you want to do like lunch or whatever? Remember we went and had.
We had lunch.
Yes. With your friend. I
remember that. Yes. Oh my gosh. With Andrea, my friend Andrea.
I don't remember who the other person was. I was just like, Rachel Luna. And then, we became friends, and you were just so generous with like teaching me about the industry. And then we kind of got to know similar people, and then I would see you at events. And then I think I might've seen you at Todd Herman's thing, because I remember like sitting down with your posse. You had like a whole like rolling.
Because I was one of Todd Herman's top affiliates.
Yes. Yeah. That's what it is. Do you know Todd lives next to me now?
I just saw that. And
Stu McLaren's coming over to my house tomorrow. Like the Kelowna connection of people that I consider some of the best humans in the world, and we all like get to do life together. I was literally with Stu and Amy and his kids on the ski hill yesterday. Like, we are creating.
I need to go to Canada. I've got my passport renewal form sitting on my desk. I'm going to do that.
Make that happen. You never want to miss an opportunity because the passport expires. That is the bane of most of my clients' existence when it comes to our Canadian event. They're like, oh no, it's expired. It's not an easy thing to get done.
You know what? I'm committing. I'm going to fill that form out today and do whatever I need to do to just turn it
cool. I'm doing something special in June that may speak to you. It may not be a fit, but it could be. And I'll just plant the seed. It's not even public. It's not public, but it's something I'm doing for my top, like the top of the top business coaches. Yeah. And it's all focused on how AI is absolutely going to transform the industry.
Okay.
I've never told anybody public this, because it's literally invite only. So I will send you some details. It may be a fit for you or not. I don't know.
No, it is. And I'll tell you why. Okay. It is. Just yesterday, I was watching a video about AI and Chat GP or whatever it's called, the chat thing. Thank you, Chat.
This is my world.
I downloaded it. And here's the thing, though. By the way, listeners, I promise we're going to get into the book, and you're going to want to stick around, but let's talk about this for a second, because I a little bit feel like a conspiracy theorist in my thinking, because I feel that AI can be very dangerous to an extent. And I don't know if you saw, but a couple of weeks ago, everyone was using this one app to get their character.
The face stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm not messing around. You're not going to get my face.
And you shouldn't on that one. It's just like there was one about a year ago about like, look what you're going to look like when you're older. And everybody started posting that one.
Either.
That's to build the data set for facial encryption cracking code. So because I know this industry well, I look at the terms of service to figure out which apps are essentially infringing on people's privacy. And unfortunately, like social media and social apps, most people do not understand that there is a ramifications of sharing certain information publicly, that they don't realize that it can have a negative consequence. So it is what it is.
June, say less. I have a chance to be in the room with you. I'm there. And my girl, Renee, who I love, that's Dan's wife. Okay. So let's take a step back. So that's how we met years and years ago. And when you share that story, I think, oh, bless her little heart. You know, Rachel from 2014, she was such a whippersnapper. And if I could go back in time and tell myself something, and I want to say this because I know that there's someone listening who was in a situation that I was in, where my husband loves me dearly, but he just didn't understand what I was trying to do. He just didn't see the vision. He could not believe with me. And because he wasn't believing with me, I really allowed that to stop me. I allowed that to dim my light. I believed his fear rather than embodied my faith. And so if I could go back to Rachel then, I would say, girl, leave him in the dust. He'll catch up because he loves you. And he did. But he would. And I did leave him. How many times did I leave him?
I remember. It was like years later though, right?
Yeah. Many times over the years, I have packed up all my stuff and just left. And this is an exclusive too, because our listeners don't know that, but we'll tell them today. It's okay. We're outing everybody. But you know, I did. There were many times where I had to just like stand up for myself and leave and say like, I'm done, because I have to choose me. But it would have been such an easier transition if, number one, I would have believed in myself and, like I said, had more faith. But number two, if I would have listened to some of the things that Dan told me to do. I remember we met in San Diego during one of my periods where I was not single, but because that sounded weird, but you know, like separated and just trying to find my space. And we went to dinner with you and a bunch of your friends, and you sat down. I think I still have that paper, by the way, because I save things. If I have it, I will take your picture. But we mapped out exactly what it was going to take for me to get to 7 figures. And you put out a whole product suite. And, you know, once again, I had the vision, I had the talent, I have the skills. I am one of the best coaches you're ever going to meet. I know that today without a doubt.
I knew it when I saw you stand up in that audience. Like I saw Rachel Luna's star and potential. And I don't remember, but like a lot of people, like you asked me, you're like, hey, I really love your thoughts. And I think I made you print out your financials. Like you came. Yes. I was like, bring it all. Let's bring it all. We're going to meet at this place, big table in the corner. I remember. And I brought some printer paper and a pen, because that's how I roll. Before I had my iPad dialed in. And then we just literally, now I do an iPad and send you the PDF, but yeah. Yeah.
And you know what, I'm so sorry. So I owe you an apology, because you were so generous. And I think as a coach now, you know, hindsight is always 2020, but for me, the biggest compliment, the biggest gift a client can ever give me is to implement the strategies that we work on. And so I am so sorry that I never had enough faith and belief in myself to live up to the plan that you helped me create. And that was why, as I'm reading this book, Buy Back Your Time, I'm like, oh my gosh, this book is so freaking good. Okay, let me get to my notes, Dan, because I need you to help us explain this. You say that, let me get to my page 205. Y'all don't follow along because this is a pre-copy and sometimes the pages change. But you talk about in chapter 13, where we're talking about the 10X vision, you say, people with insanely huge goals aren't getting haunted by despair or stuck in the mediocre. Every decision in their life relates back to making their insane dream a reality. When I read that, look, I'm even still getting the chills right now.
You just gave me goosebumps reading that to myself. But you nailed, I want to say this, you nailed it earlier when you used the word faith over fear. Like that's what happens when you give yourself permission to dream, right? People don't stop and ask themselves, what is the difference between fear and faith? Because if you ask somebody, describe, fear, they'd be like, well, the belief of a potential future that has a negative consequence. And then it's like, okay, that's fear. What is faith? The belief of a future and a positive outcome. Okay, cool. Who decides? You do.
And we do.
We do. Literally, the difference between faith and over fear is a decision. And what I've discovered and why I wrote that chapter, because it was so important to me to like, look, are you going to learn a completely different modality to think about your time? Yes. It's not just a productivity book, although that's in there. It's also a leadership book because most CEOs are very, very bad people managers, right? So I put 3 specific frameworks that I think will absolutely save you from yourself. And then I had to put the 10X vision stuff because I had to give you permission to dream of a future, to give yourself faith that can happen if you give yourself a big enough timeline. Like that's the key. It's when I dream, I focus on the destination and I don't worry about the how, because I'm a person of faith and I can tell you 100 times that the thing that happened didn't happen the way I thought it was supposed to happen. Right. And God's denials are not, they're just his delays. Like sometimes we have to realize his denials are not denials, they're just delays. And then, but you do need to dream it. You need to visualize it. You need to focus on it. You have to make it a thing. You have to be like, this is where I want to go. And that's why the 10X vision map was so important to put in there.
Okay, but we have to pull at this because there's so many things I want to really try to.
We can do a part 2 and a 3 and a 4.
We're gonna have to. We're gonna have to because first of all, I need to set this up for our listener. Look, I'm gonna tell you right now so that I don't have that pressure in the back of my mind of I didn't tell you enough about this book, because I want to have this one conversation about vision, and I don't want you to not get the book because we talk about this one very important piece. I have to tell you that in the book, Dan talks about the buyback principle, the buyback loop, the drip matrix, the replacement ladder, which
that one there is money. That one, yes. Replacement ladder.
Yes. That was so good. And then chapter 8, when we talk about the energy, because the perfect week in chapter 8, I talk about energy management all the time and you nailed it. By the way, you also call me out literally by name when you talk about Rachel, the boutique owner who can't seem to do 75 hard. That's me, Rachel, the boutique owner who can't seem to do 75 hard. I'm like, Dan, what are you doing? Calling me out by name in the book, but that's okay. I'll take it for the team because it was so good. In chapter 9, you talk about the definition of done and the 1-3-1 rule. And then we go into my baby, the 10X vision map in chapter 13 and the preloaded year. So listener, we're going to focus so much more on the vision part, but I don't want you to miss the freaking meat and potatoes of this book. So we're going to link Buy Back Your Time. And now that I've plugged it sufficiently, I can relax and know that if I'm telling you right now, this is the second time in 7 years that I do this podcast that I'm going to make this guarantee. First time I made it was for my friend Marshawn Evans Daniels' book, Believe Bigger. I'm going to make this same promise to you. Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time. If you buy this book and you do not walk away feeling like, oh my gosh, that was worth, what is it? $29.99, $30. The $30, $27 in US, $37 Canada, email me and I will pay you. I will give you your money back because that's how good. And this is Dan, I've never done that except one other time. And I interview a lot of people and I read a lot of books, but I'm going to put my own personal money where my mouth is because already I feel, Dan, do you know what this book did for me? This book helped me.
Rachel, do you see my face right now?
Yeah, I do. And I'm like full chills right now too, bro. Full chills right now. But I mean it. I mean every single word of that, Dan. Do you know that your book gave me a whole new dream today that I couldn't even see for myself, that I couldn't even see possible, that I couldn't land into. And there's so many books on the market, and I read a lot. A lot of them I don't finish because they're trash. And this one is one where I've like, oh, I have to read this multiple times. My assistant doesn't really like to read, but I'm going to have to force her to read it because like we need to be on the same.
There's a whole chapter just for her. Just
yeah,
say, go
exactly.
do this.
Yes, exactly. There was a whole chapter just for her. So I'm serious. Like,
well, I want to share with you what's coming up for me as you say this, because like I'm in tears. Like the fact that this is serving you, somebody I care so much about you, that you feel this way just means the world to me. Like, I'm grateful for anybody else that wants to read it. But honestly, like Rachel, if you were the only one that read it, I would have done it for you, just so you know. So like it means a lot. Cause like, you know how much work goes into a book. And like, I waited and waited and waited to write. People like, write a book on software, because that's what I'm known for. And I was like, no, I don't feel called to do it. And then 2.5 years ago, I just like couldn't get this specific thing off my brain. And I was like, I gotta share this, because there's so many, as I told you when we started, like I had 5 specific friends of mine that I absolutely love. And the problem is when you're close to people, it's just hard. Like you can't save somebody that's not swimming towards you. Right.
Yes. I know exactly what you mean.
And all I can do is just shine my light. I can just wake up every day and be an example. And when they're ready, they're going to reach out. Right. And I was just like, you know what, maybe it's time to take this concept and wrap it into a book format, so that somehow maybe in the right moment, it's sitting on their desk and they look over and they go, you know, Dan keeps talking about this. Maybe I should crack this thing open. And as they read it, they react the way you just reacted, which is like, oh shit, Dan wrote a book about me. And like, I know the names are, because I'm telling you, Rachel, even Renee, as she's reading it, she's like, is that about me? And I'm like, you tell me.
Maybe.
But it's because I literally was embodying, because I like this part of me that's just like, I really hope this is the time. Like, I want this to be the moment you go, okay, the way I've been doing it is not going to work. And that's what's so core about this message that I think you've got to. It's like, this is a completely different way of approaching building your business, right? In a way that actually will give you more time and light you up and give you the resources to be more generous and give to your community and all these things. And that's everything. Like, that's it. I don't know. I feel like I'm like, no, yes.
We're not done.
Thank you.
Get back in here. No, good night.
I'm here. I just had to share that, because like,
no, good night.
This was a moment for me.
Well, listen, it's been a moment for me. I started reading, a couple of days ago when I posted, and it's just like highlight after highlight. So let me go into it. You talk about how you made your first million in 2008, and it completely changed what was possible for you. But the thought that I had was, how'd you get to the first million? What was the belief there? What did you set out with the intention of, we're going to make this into $1 million?
This is what people, and that's why it was cool to write it out. Like, if you read kind of the journey, I didn't have aspirations to do $1 million when I started business. I honestly, I just wanted to like not have to work for somebody. That would have, like, when I was 17, I started messing around with software and stuff. I was like, being able to do things I want to do every day and just not work for somebody sounds awesome. So let's just try to get to that point. And I failed. Like, maritime vacation, complete failure, NB host, didn't work out. And then I like went sideways for like 4 years. Okay. Where I was consulting, I was doing contract work. I was just trying to pay the bills. And when I say like try to business, I mean, like, Rachel, you know me, I'm intense. Like, I tried. This wasn't a side hustle. This was like a full-time effort. This was like, I was one company all in. Yes. And so by the time the third iteration, and my dad was begging me, like, just get a job. Like, why are you doing this? Like, I really think, and I'm like, I just can't do it. And I read a book called Love is a Killer App, this guy, Tim Sanders. And 20 years ago, almost to the day, which is cool.
Wow.
The whole story there. But and that introduced me to reading business books. And then that introduced me to the classics, the 7 Habits, the Good to Greats, the E-Myth. And the E-Myth introduced me to, oh, there's a way to build a business that is smart. And then I was like, I hired an E-Myth coach, this guy named Bob, and he was an E-Myth certified coach, $1,500 a month, US. I'm Canadian. That's real money. And I didn't have a business. I'm 23. Okay. Before I started my 3rd company, but I knew in my soul, I was like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I don't want to be insane. I don't think I'm insane. So I have to try something fundamentally different. So I hired Bob, and then Bob was the one that, and then reading the book started to give me belief. And I remember Good to Great, you know, they talk about like great companies have this. And one of them was a vision. And I like created this deck, and I gave myself 10 years. And I think my goal was like $5 million, like 10 years, $5 million. And I was like, that was my BHAG. That was like, you know, and
did you mean 10 million, wait, $5 million?
5 million revenue in 10 years, 50 employees.
Cumulatively? Or
no, that year, 5 million a year business.
Okay. Got it. Keep going.
Yeah. And because I allowed myself to have that BHAG, right? It was international, 50 people, 5 million. I put it in a deck. I had 2 employees. I presented it to them. Guys, this is what we're doing. 10 years. Don't freak out. Because I was like, I didn't want them to freak out. Yeah. And it was, there's just something about that, plus having a coach, Bob, and then just started building momentum. So like there's levels, right? You get to like your first 25K a month, and then you like, oh, I need to learn about people. And then you get to like 60K a month, and you're like, whoa, okay, that's crazy. And then 83K a month. Technically, if I do this every month, that's $1 million in revenue. And it's like, oh geez. And like, there were moments along the way. And because I was willing to put the hours in, and I talk about this in the book, because it ended up almost killing me. Okay. But I was putting in the work. Like my wife asked me the other day, she goes, how do you work 100 hours a week? I was like, babes, I wasn't healthy. Like I was working probably more. Like I slept 6 hours and everything else was just like full on in.
Let me pause there for a second, because as I hear you say that, I'm thinking of a client of mine, and she just had this question the other day. She said, it seems like the people that are telling you to take it easy and to like not work so hard are the people that worked really, really hard in the beginning, and they built their audience, and now they can sort of take it easy. So what do you say to someone like that? If she's just starting, or she doesn't have the audience that she wants yet, can the buyback your time principle still work for her? She didn't put in the 100 hours.
Yeah, I get it. Me and Untitled this weekend, right? New Year's Day, I call them up, FaceTime them for an hour, and we're talking about this specific problem. Rachel, it's the same thing when you tell people it's not about the money, but they don't realize it until they have the money. You know this, you know, like if I could put $1 million in everybody's bank account, so they can just like sit there and go like, you are the same person, whether you have $1 million in your bank account or not. You think it's going to change something. It won't. So like, I wish that I could just, and that's why I wrote the book, because if I was starting over from scratch today, I wouldn't have done it that way. That's not how I do it today. I buy companies today. I follow my process that I teach. Why? Because there's this belief that more hours equals more output, and it's not true. There's a limited amount of creation and productivity, like true production and recharging in rhythms. Like I will outpace anybody, because instead of killing myself for 4 years and then taking 3 or 4 years off, if you're just consistent long enough over time, compound effect, you know, there's all these books have been written about it. You're just going to outperform people. So because I create a rhythm of success, of empire building, and the key is 10x vision, collaboration, getting really good at being an asker. I used to be so bad at this. It was my Achilles heel for a long time. I never asked for anything from anybody. because it was scary and I didn't want to be rejected. And I would rather, but good news, luckily for me, I was able to produce, like I was capable of creating. But the moment I decided, I remember I like woke up and said, this is the muscle to build this year.
Yeah.
And I'm going to become world-class at asking and collaborating. And then boom, that's why I didn't talk about it a lot in the book, but I hinted at it in the 10X vision map. The empire side, when you get really good at trading your time, it's actually a lot easier because now you're creating with an energy, because you have the space in your calendar to do it, of abundance and collaboration. And things start happening at a level where you're like, oh, how is this happening? Right? Like, and I know why now is because I've given myself permission to focus on my energy. And when I take positive energy into activities, that activity has, it's emotionally charged and it has bigger impact by like 3 or 4x. Like, and there's, anybody can test this. Go have a bad event happen to you and then go try to do something important in your business. Like, you know, get new customers or chat or whatever, like try to do some marketing if you're in a bad headspace, or wait until something magical happens where you're on cloud 9 and then go ask for the most craziest, scariest favor from whoever and watch what happens. And I'm telling you, that for me is why the 10X vision map works so well with the perfect week in the energy management, because when you stack the greens and you stack the focus and the vision, you're producing 4x more. So I can work 35 hours a week and produce like I was working 120 hours a week because I'm bringing energy to the actual work that only I can do. Whereas before I was doing a bunch of stuff that I shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
So I wish I could teach people that.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're saying, my friend said, well, these are people who have already done it. I get it. It's just like, I could tell you it's not about the money, but until you have the money, it's going to be hard for you to understand that. And I could tell you don't have to work 100 hours a week to be successful, but maybe that's what you got to go through to realize it's not about that.
Well, as I was thinking about this client too, there's something, I think it's in chapter 4 where you talk about being addicted to chaos. And I think that this person really fits into that as well. So there's an addiction to chaos. And so
the 5-time assassins.
Yeah. And so if I'm addicted to chaos, then I have to create this story and I have to be right in the story that I have to go 100 hours or else it's not going to work. Now, if there's no fires to put out, then I'm not trying hard enough or I'm not succeeding. Yeah. I actually have, I don't know if you know this, Dan, but like I had breast cancer a couple of years ago. And
Rachel, of course I know. Yes.
Oh, did you know that? Oh,
yes. I knew it. I follow you very, very closely.
But the thing is, there were some things that I had done pretty right in that seat, right leading up to that. I didn't know that I was sick, but just right leading up to that, I'd done a really good job of putting a couple of systems in place. Not a ton. We didn't have everything dialed in, but we had enough in place that, you know, I could be off getting treatment and like the business didn't collapse. If anything, the next year I made, I think like 150% more the following year. And then I had another year of growth. And this year we did 56% more. So, you know, life has been nice because of that, because I have given myself permission to like, let's just focus on getting one or two things doing. Now, do I wish I had been more consistent? Like you talk about overtime, hell to the yes. But to your point, you said the money doesn't change. You have to change. And then you can do more intentionally with the money. And you talk about intentionality too. I underlined that somewhere. But one of the little points that I want to make sure I blow our listeners' mind with is that research shows, according in your book, you write this, research shows that small business owners, like everyone else, are wasting a lot of time, on average about 22 hours a week. And you also talked about drag time, where that was where I felt personally attacked. Yeah, because
that may be 100% for my wife, just so you know. And Renee and I joke about it because she definitely allows herself to have that happen.
This is why Renee and I love each other, because we understand each other. This was in chapter 8 where we're talking about the perfect week, which, by the way, is something that I used to do time blocking the way that you talk about it in the book, because our friend Todd Herman taught me that about context switching, and you talk about context switching in the book as well, which is really important. But I have a whole time management workshop where I teach like time blocking, but I am notorious for drag time, which is leaving those little spaces. And when you pointed out that there's like a whole 90 minutes a day being wasted on these like 15-minute breaks, but here's what came up for me. When you talk in the book about stacking these Zoom meetings, instantly I got anxiety. Like, oh my gosh, stacking Zoom meetings, all the energy that is going to be expended, I'm going to be passed out at the end of the day. And is that the goal, to like pass out at the end of the day? I don't think so.
It's a great question. So here's what I've learned is every person has capacity, and it's a muscle they can develop. And you can probably look at the capacity of the person 7 years ago to what you're able to deal with today, and it's a completely different scale, right? Like so if it's a muscle, and then you also need to understand, if you want to grow, then you have to ask yourself the question, who do I need to become to achieve that next level?
Yep.
That's the question. There is no like, what do I need to do? You think it's strategy. I'm telling you, it's if I want to achieve 10 million a year, 100,000, right? Who do I need to become to be the person that can do that? And there's characteristics, right? I always look at the ladder of success. On the left side, you have the beliefs. On the right side, you have the skills, and on the ladder, it's character traits. So that's the ladder we're trying to build. So, could you do it? Just try. Do 2 back-to-back, right? And see how that feels, right? So like, I do believe in energy management. So like for me, I don't do any like in-person meetings until the afternoons. I love my mornings to create, but they're not open to whatever. They're very structured and they're designed. And it's like, I know I have these pieces of creative stuff I want to do. And I know that I can only do about 2 hours on one project. And then I want to switch to a different project to create some spice. Right. So like, all I'm saying is figure out what your thing is. But like in some people, like I do Pomodoro. So I'll do 25 minutes, 5 minutes off. So that's my, like, technically it's a 30-minute block, but I got a 5-minute reset. So I'm not saying, go crazy, but I've also gotten to the level where I think one day I did 13 podcast interviews in one day, like me being interviewed. That's a muscle I've developed. I also developed a muscle where I could do 5 days in a row of event. I used to do 3 events a week. One day, it was a 1 day on Monday, 2 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then 2 days, Thursday, Friday. And I had to develop that. The first time I did it, I lost my voice, and then I just like kept working at it, got a voice coach, got an energy coach, like had to figure out, how do I do it? How do I increase the capacity? Right. So I would just say, like, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek.
That's good.
Joseph Campbell, not Dan Martell, Joseph Campbell. But that is
Joseph
the
Campbell,
answer.
Martell.
Yeah. It's because I meditate on that question quite a bit, because it's a beautiful question. But so I think that wherever there's a thing that creates that anxiety that you read is just something worth considering. Maybe that's a cave. And what if in that cave, learning like how to do that, not saying you got to do it all the time, but maybe I should play with it, right? Like even buying back your time. People are like, oh, I would feel so guilty if my mother-in-law found out that I hired a cleaning lady. I get it, right? Like I coach a lot of people on this kind of stuff, and I've heard all the reasons. And I just say, well, just give yourself permission to do 30 days, do a month, $500, give yourself a budget, and just try it on, put it on like a coat and see if it feels good. And you might go like, oh, that feels really nice. I actually thought it wouldn't feel this good. I want more. And then you at least have a data point, and right. And it could be like the first time you put it on, it doesn't feel great because you got to get it hemmed a little bit. And then you just go like, oh, if I put, it's so interesting because like, I remember one of my business coaches, Marcy, one time, this is when I was having, so Max and Noah, as you know, are 11 months apart. So we built 2 out. It was just this crazy period of my life. Renee and I both started companies. 2 kids, 2 years, 2 houses. And we moved to Canada, like countries from San Francisco. It was like crazy. And I was literally having anxiety attacks. Okay. I didn't even write about this in the book because like my life is just littered with examples of stuff I do write about, but I have several stories. And I'm like, call Barcy. I'm like, we need to talk. And she's like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just like, I'm feeling like overwhelmed and like, you know, we have a baby and Renee's pregnant again. And, you know, we're trying to make it all work. And she goes, go for a walk. We go for a walk and we sit down on a couch or on a bench. And she does this breathing technique with me. So it was awesome. I was just like, okay. So she got me centered. And she asked me a very beautiful question. She goes, what would need to be true? Like, what are the 10 things, if you could just give yourself permission to dream, just what would be true? What would need to be true for you just to absolutely love life right now? Like, just like no constraints. Don't worry about being selfish. Just like, what would need to be true? And I was like what? She goes, anything. I said, anything. She goes, yeah. I go, I want a hot tub. Okay. What else? Like, Rachel's so stupid. Like, I want a side by side. She's like, you want a side by side? I said, I want a side by side. She goes, what else? I go, I want a night nanny. She goes, what is that? I said, I don't know, but my investor told me about it. I think I want a night nanny. She's like, write it down. So like, I'm sitting there on this bench with my phone out and I'm just writing all these things in a note file. And at the end of it, I had 10 things. And she goes, tally it up. What do you mean? She goes, put a dollar amount to it. Like some things like a side by side was like 25 grand. So it wasn't nothing. A hot tub's not nothing. Right. But she goes, you could decide to do something with this or nothing with this, but at least now you know. And I'll tell you, I went back, night nanny was done decision, transformed it. You talk to Renee, like, I do not know why we thought we had to be heroes because we didn't have family around us supporting us. Because what happened is I moved back to be close to my family and my 2 other brothers and sisters decided to have kids at the exact same time. So all the in-laws were helping with the other kids and we had the means. So they expected us to have a nanny. And I don't know why Renee and I just like, we want to do it all. We don't want help. That was crazy. We did that with Max. And then because they were 11 months apart, it just compounded. So, and just like, you know, getting the night nanny, getting support on certain types. Oh, I hired somebody to a chef. We got a chef. We had like all these things. Now it sounds fancy when you say chef, meal prep. Literally, we found a person at the farmer's market. Yeah. It was a person at the farmer's market that we normally would just go on Saturday to buy stuff from. We just asked them if they could just make it during the week and bring it to our house and pay them a little extra. And they were like, absolutely. So I say a chef, but it's like, it wasn't like a guy in a suit and he came to our house for 3 meals a day.
Wait, I have to stop you here because I think that what you've just done is a classic example of how we minimize the fulfillment of our dreams to help other people feel better about them, you know, but feel better about feeling bad about wanting it. And no, like a chef is freaking awesome. When I was sick, I had a chef because I was too sick to cook for myself. And my diet was so freaking hard. And I miss her every day. She had to go back because I couldn't afford to give her benefits, which by the way, was a thing for me of like, I got to make enough money so that I can have someone that I could pay benefits so they could keep cooking me this great food. And when I did what you said to do in the book, when we were talking about the 10X vision and to write down a list of just write down the list. And I put chef back on my thing because I miss that. Yes. And as we're talking here, I know exactly who I can reach out to today to bring that back into my life. So do not minimize you, Dan, listener. Like, I think it's important. Let's stop trying to make other people feel okay with the fulfillment of our dreams.
It's a great point. That's like, even as I share these ideas, I've been getting a bunch of people and I've been letting that happen because the challenge is, you know, you gotta, you know, meet people where they're at. And some people like, this is so foreign of like, you don't clean your house. Like, not even that. I mean, we have a house manager. So we've gone to like a level, like the last chapter, actually, I had to put it the last chapter because I wanted to help people with the business. And then the last chapter is the buyback lifestyle. And I unpack and I show, if you want to know kind of how crazy this stuff can get, let me tell you about our house manager, because we literally have a CEO of my professional life. That's my executive assistant. And I have the CEO of my personal life. So anything that Renee or I would do, is handled by Betty. And not only does she manage the food stuff, she manages all the help and all that stuff. So that way, Renee and I can literally just wake up and create and be with each other and hang out with our kids and call our friends like Rachel. And I think you were on her podcast recently. Like,
I was
awesome. I know. No, like this is the thing, Rachel, we may not talk as much as I would like, but we talk about you a lot in the house. So like, I know everything going on.
Thank you.
And you're right. It's just, I just want people to be open to the fact that, $1 million companies are not built off $10 tasks. It's impossible. There's not enough hours in the week. And, like when I coach clients, especially women clients, and they're like, I don't have time to go to the gym and I don't have time for this. And I'm like, look, you actually do. Like, I know your business. I know your numbers. Like, you just got to give yourself permission to buy back some time in the home, right? You're doing better in the business, but let's bring it to the home to create some space for you. Cause like my kids do not care if I made them their lunch. They need to eat, but they do care if I can't go skiing with them because I have to work on Saturday morning. So I'm choosing where I allocate my time and resources. And I just think people need permission. And that's why I wrote the whole chapter on the 5 time assassins, because I think a lot of it is mindset that's going to stop people from executing.
Man, we're going to have to bring you back because this is something that you also wrote, and I'm feeling it right now. This is why I want to bring you back. But you wrote, passionate people ignite passion in others. And that's exactly how I felt as I read the book. And I'm going to read it again. Cause like, as I mentioned at the top of our conversation, like, this is one of those books you read it once and you put it down. If you are the type of person that doesn't want to grow, you just want to be, you would just want to be a consumer, but not a creator. But if you are someone that wants to grow, you're going to read this book one time just to read it, to like understand a little bit. Then you're going to read it again to start looking for where you can apply it. And then you're going to read it a third time to just make sure that you didn't leave any nuggets behind. Like, that's how I am experiencing this book so far. The book is called Buy Back Your Time by my friend, Dan Martell. Dan, last question, because, and this is just like a very silly question, but anytime I have people that make $1 million plus, I always ask them, and we're going to go back to where you were making 1.6 million in revenue way back, because now you're an 8-figure earning entrepreneur. But back in the day, you were making 1.6 million in revenue and you had 12 employees. So I always ask people that make it $1 million or more to talk to us about, how much do you get to have when you're making $1 million? And at what point, how much money does someone have to make to pay themselves $1 million? That's
a great question. At that point, I think I was paying myself like 80. So it's not a lot, but I was 26, I think, at that point when we were doing 1.6 or 1.4 or whatever, or maybe even 25. So I was pretty young.
Yeah.
And I was living, I didn't have a lot of needs. And I was never, as you know, like, I'm not a flashy guy. I've gotten better at that. I do drive an orange McLaren, and yes, I've gotten better at that. But for a long time, I was way below what my income was. And then I would say, what happened for me is just like, cause I exited the company, then I was living off essentially my investments. So like personally, it was kind of fuzzy, like how much was I paying myself? Cause I knew what I spent, but it is cool to get to a place where like, there is no like limit, right? Like obviously buying a $10 million home, you have to like slow down a little bit and check some stuff and cash flow and like, what's the maintenance, all that stuff. But like right now, I mean, I'm in a lot, like multi-millions.
No, but yeah, no, I know you're in the multi-millions, but my second
personally, part of like, question,
nobody's asking all that. You don't have to get naked here. The second part of the question is, how much does someone have to make on average to give themselves a $1 million payday?
Oh, like like annually or one time?
An annual salary of $1 million from their business. not investment.
Yeah, I personally, the way I like to do it, there's a difference between a salary and a distribution. So a salary is getting paid to do the work, and a distribution is getting paid for ownership. So usually you want to pay the CEO the market norm for the size of business. Okay. So if you have a 10 million a year business, that CEO is probably getting comped around 500,000 a year all in. Okay. So let's say it's 300K salary plus 200 bonus. So if you're at 10 million, you're going to give yourself a 500, because you always want to pay yourself market norms. That's where I did make that mistake. I shouldn't have been paying myself 80 at 1.6. I should have been paying myself like 175 or 200. Right now, again, I was paying myself a salary of 80, but then if I wanted to go buy a new car cash, I would just give myself a distribution. So I would say the number to pay yourself $1 million a year is probably close to about 6 million, because then if you're doing 20% net, that's about 6 million in revenue. And maybe you're not 20% net, but you should be actually at 6 million. So then you can pay yourself a 250 plus a 7 something. And yeah, it's probably about 6 million.
Love that. Look, so for those of you that were like, I have to make $1 bajillion. No, you don't. It's just 6 million.
Oh, and this is what's crazy is after you're making if you're paying yourself like net 50K a month or gross, even like you're living whatever lifestyle you want, minus maybe flying private whenever you want. Like people think you need to make $100 million. No, you don't. And the same thing with the book. Like literally, if you hired an executive assistant and somebody to help out in the house, even part-time, you're living better than most $100 million CEOs. Trust me, I know them. I live in a very fancy neighborhood. I'm the only one with a house manager, because even at that level, people do not give themselves permission to live the buyback lifestyle, because they think I got to go work more. And that's why I tell people, instead of going buying that next new Mercedes or new BMW, get yourself somebody that buys your time back, so you can actually like have the space to create a higher quality of life. And it'll turn out you'll actually pay 3 or 4 times over the next upgrade in 12 months, because you'll have the time and the space to be creative and to be present and to go to the gym and get your fitness on and all that stuff.
Oh, so good. The book is called Buy Back Your Time by my friend Dan Martell. We're going to link in the description. And like I said, I dare you to read this book and come back to me and say, it wasn't worth the $27, because I'll pay you for it. Putting my money where my mouth is. Dan, I love you. I am so grateful for you. Anything else you want to plug that I may have forgotten?
No, buybackyourtime.com is the website. Go there, because I've got a ton of the templates. I talked about the preloaded year and the perfect week and a bunch of other exercises. You can only get it at the website. And if anything I ever do or share with you serves you, please leave a review. That is the flywheel that I'm trying to create to push this movement into the world of entrepreneurship and conversation. It will be a byproduct of reviews on Amazon. So if you could do me the honor to leave a review, it would mean the world. And I'm on social media at Dan Martell, 2 L's Martell, on all platforms. And I share a lot every day.
You do. Your YouTube channel is fantastic as well. So we will link to all of that. Thank you so much for being here, Dan.
Honored. Thanks, Rachel.